Good evening, everybody. This is Arul from an organization called People First into talent hiring, coaching, uh, leadership development, etc. So back again this Tuesday with rather a simple and I feel an important topic because I feel that it's overrated sometimes that we should do things with passion. We should find our life purpose. The people who know me would have heard me speaking about these things, many times. But I think it's overrated. Discover your passion. Do what you really like to do. Be your true self. Uh, these are very important explorations, which we also do. Very important explorations. But at the same time, I do want to talk about today about the other end of the spectrum, which is morning to evening. We are doing things which is boring. To take a very simple example, I really don't like to shave. A very simple thing, and I really love to have a beard. Okay, and but sometimes it's used to come in the way of some. It would not have fully grown. It would come in the way of an important client meeting. When we used to do it in person, and I used to take it off and stuff like that. I find the activity very boring. To take an example, or many people find exercising very boring. In the workplace, like I run an organization now for many years now. Uh, there are always things you have to do, which is not really part of your passion, not really exciting for you, but you have to do it well. And if you don't do it well, there are consequences. Like, so for example, I definitely wasn't that passionate or joyful about maintaining expenses and balance sheets and all that in the beginning. When I was doing it myself and going and handing it over to the auditor. Now we have people who take care. It used to be one of the most boring activities, but yet if you don't do, then you either pay up unnecessarily, or it's not ethical. It's not value centered. So this I think I would say that as much as living life around purpose or doing things that are really joyful, equally or more important is what is our relationship to tasks which are boring, which are not interesting, and that is a subject I'm going to explore. As usual, I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to keep it explorative. I know some of you are listening on the call, or some of you are listening it later. If you wish to come in with a question or something of that sort, feel free at any point of time. So let's take some examples. I have quoted this before. One of the best books I've read, which completely changed my relationship to life, was a book on mindfulness. And the example that was quoted there was, how do you wash your dishes? Okay. Now, for them, everything was coming to the present moment. Be in the present moment. Be in the present moment. And it was a Zen form of meditation, dynamic meditation. And the whole training was in the washing dishes as much as one is sitting and meditating or hearing the master giving a lecture or giving a certain guidance. So I still remember this book that I read about 26 years back or something of that sort in a bus that I was traveling. And you're keeping your washed, you're keeping your plate, where you have just had your food, and you feel the water on your skin. And the thought goes elsewhere. What should I do next? That one task is pending to do from work or, in the family. And the whole practice was to bring the attention back to the water, to the trickle of the water, to the washing of the vessel. You use the senses to completely come into the present moment. And thus, activity which often one does to just complete it off, finish the task, or even sometimes people eat to finish a task. I know that I know several people who do that, finish the task. Okay, and now you multitask at that point. You eat and you read or something of that sort, so that you're maximizing time. But here was a beautiful practice. How the same activity which is just done to finish it off can be done as a sadhana. So something has got added to that boring task, the element of transformation, the element of coming into the present moment. Now, everybody would understand the power of coming to the present moment. There was a mentor. I had the good fortune of having some beautiful, very simple, unknown mentors in my life. So there was a gentleman called Dasan in my much younger times who was also a mentor. And his whole philosophy of transformation was very simple: be it pain or be it joy, experience it in the moment, and the pain will dissolve, and the joy would just get enhanced. The same principle is there in Vipassana. So the mindfulness is a form of Vipassana anyway. So that was my first introduction to how do I do a boring task, in this case as a sadhana or as a practice. Okay. But I'm just being very honest, but that didn't necessarily give me the motivation, for example, to, in the beginning, to really be very meticulous about maintaining my bills, accounts, expenses, and all that stuff. I did slip a little bit because why? Arul is busy. You have to do a lot of business development. You have to take care of client assignments. And then, as new people started coming in, we had to figure out things. So those were the key tasks. And this was like not so important one. So I used to always forget it, and then the time used to come. But I have to do it correctly. I put it in a cover, fine, but I did not organize it and all that stuff. So I had to go in the last or semi-last minute and all that stuff. I did not yet come to a relationship with that boring activity of bills, for example. Now that got transformed honestly when I experienced the joy of doing finance. So this is one of the most important things I'm sharing right now. The task is boring for me. I don't like. But in the first instance, I figured out another way of doing something for sadhana, which didn't crack for me. But when I started experiencing the dharma or the pulsation of finance, of bills, of accounts, then suddenly it opened up, and to whatever extent was needed, I did. Okay, of course. After that, you have somebody who takes care of these because we're running an organization. That's fine. But I had to taste uh, the rhythm of that task itself. Okay, so a boring task inside that is finance, is a cash flow, is the pulsation of abundance. Is Money is a form of power. Money is a tool for creativity. So beneath that activity of boring bills, you have to do it. I started experiencing two things. One is this living force of abundance. Uh, it's a dimension of creativity. It's a dimension of manifestation. I started getting to understand, but I would say that my relationship has got better only now. After 20 years, 25 years of being with it, slowly, I understand that inside this, let's say there's a department of accounts, there's a task of doing these bills, which is boring, but inside that is a living energy, is a pulsating energy, which is extremely crucial for the organization. Am I with that energy? Am I honoring it? Now, still, if I get somebody who can take care of bills and accounts, I will most joyfully give it to them, and so that I can do things that are more important, more joyful, etc. But even for a minute, if I do it, even if for a minute I'm checking some invoices or putting things in order or filing and all that, now I actually like that job. Okay, I don't do it because I want to do other things, but when I do it and if I do it, I've got in touch the second aspect. One is the flow of, let's say, the living energy of life, living energy of creation. That's one aspect. The second aspect is the joy of precision, the joy of doing, filing it correctly, which I think my dad was a role model. Uh, I think for me, one of the most boring jobs is most boring. Even now it is, like we get the newspaper, we read it, then we are supposed to keep it in a place. And then after a month or two, then we are supposed to take it and put it in the newspaper wala. So still now I do it functionally. I'm being honest. I do it functionally, which means the paper has to be taken, kept here, and then when it is going to the person who's collecting, it doesn't matter. He anyway is going to take it, put it all together, crumple it, and some processes there. So I do it functionally. But my dad, I watched him. Even the other day, I was discussing with my mother. My dad had mastered it. He would exactly he'll read. He reads. He used to read the papers for a long time. I wonder what he was doing with it. So then he will fold it perfect. There will be no difference between an iron shirt, the way he folds and keeps it. The same, if you open his cupboard, that's how his clothes used to be. The same way will be with a red newspaper with his initial on top. And because if he missed reading a newspaper, he has to read that. Let's say if he's gone on a training or whatsoever. So there will be the newspaper cleanly folded with his initial A, Anto Vincent, his initial A on top, and that will tell him that this paper is over. And when he has to give it to the newspaper, we are in a housing complex. Sometimes they come and collect it also. So he would impeccably keep it and he'll leave it out. Why? It was a value. Okay, the paper reading and folding and keeping. He was reading the paper for information, for knowledge. He was a widely read human. But what was coming into the boring activity was a value. What passes through me has to be perfect. The 2 days back, my mom was asking. We were talking, and she was saying that he used to ask my dad, "Why you're doing it? Because anyway they're going to throw it." He says, "What passes through me has to be perfect." Now, what they do is not in my control, but this is in my control, and I want to do it in this way and let it go. So it's a value. So into the boring activity of, let us say, folding a paper, a value has been imprinted. A value has been extracted, like a sugar cane gives a juice. Here, in this case, the folding of the newspaper renders a value of I care for this newspaper. What passes through me has to pass through perfection. Maybe it was also a act of sadhana, and he puts it out there. So the value of the boring act has got uplifted. It has entered a different dimension where it becomes an opportunity for him to practice his particular value. Okay, so you got that. Like this, there are lots of small activities that we do mindlessly. We just want to complete. We just want to complete. We just want to complete. I also want to complete many things because there are many important things to do also. But then life is one compartment. Life is one compartment. If I want to excel or master in a work, or if I want to excel or master in a hobby, it's a particular attitude that I'm going to bring in. Now, let's say I'm creating a product or a service in an organization. We have both. We have both services and products. Now, the customer is only going to see my output. Okay, the customer is going to see the biodatas that we're going to give on talent hiring, or if it is training or coaching, the customer is going to see the value we give, the knowledge or the information, and the experiential way that we take people there. So let us say I'm doing it online. Okay, let's say I'm doing it online. I'm sitting in front of the Zoom and I'm doing it. In the past and in the future, we'll do it in person. Great. Now, how does it matter, for example, what is on my table? Like right now, you don't know what is on my table. You don't see it. There's this nice light which people ask me to put so that my face is more lit. So I've done that. And I'm sitting here, but you don't know what is on my table. Does it matter? It does matter. Okay. This is actually a boring activity in one sense of it, because every time I keep my table clean, okay, this one I need to make improvements. I'm being honest. So every time I clean my table, in a couple of days, some dirt comes and it's going to form a layer. So I have to clean it again. There are some people in my office I notice, they come. The first thing I've seen these people doing is they clean their desk, they wipe their monitor. It takes 2 minutes. It's a fantastic habit. This particular thing I've not done yet. I run in, I switch on the computer, I'm ready to go. But I've seen a few people, and actually they've given me feedback saying, "Arul, you need to improve this thing in you," and I definitely have to improve. How does it matter to the customer? For example, I'm doing this session. how my table is, what's on my table, is it going to matter for you? Yes. Because everything is not just about the task alone, everything is about consciousness also. What is the energy space I'm in? What is the consciousness that is here? For sure, for sure. Like it's not just the words that you're listening from somebody, it's also the consciousness that the person carries and what's around that matters. Okay. So, thus, every tiny activity, sometimes I find people, especially in organization. Now it's much better because people say that you have to take care of things. Uh, there's a little bit dirt somewhere on the floor. Well, it is the caretaker's job or the maintenance people's job. No, that is also going to impact our work because that boring job, let us say, of cleaning the table or keeping things in order in your desk, or what about the desktop? Okay, does it really matter? Very boring job. We have some things on the desktop or the way we store our stuff internally. Organizations have processes on many of the large things, but the small details, or for example, how do I keep my bag? Does it really make an impact? A boring job of, let's say, keeping my bag clean or not, it makes a hell of a lot of a difference. Hell of a lot of a difference because much of what we do, like two people could be doing the same thing, same task, but what is the consciousness that they are carrying really matters. It's like about the 70% of the iceberg. The 30% of the iceberg is what you see, what people do. But behind it, what energy, what quality is carried is often going to come through in these tiny, boring jobs. So the life becomes very interesting. Wake up in the morning to the time we go to sleep. Every activity can be an activity as an opportunity for sadhana. What does sadhana mean? Inner practice, outer practice. There's another dimension of today's sharing, which we mentioned about skill, skillfully. Can we also do the boring tasks, both from a perspective of practice for our consciousness or bringing forth a certain value, and can we also do it skillfully? Doing something skillful wholeheartedly can become a practice. I've had the good fortune of meeting many simple, accomplished people or many simple, happy people. Okay. And I have seen that they do all this, even the small things, with a high degree of skill. Cutting vegetables, like my father-in-law, I've seen how he cuts the vegetables. It's almost as if he runs a business. It's almost like he does his business. He cuts the vegetables with that act of precision, correctly, correct size, etc., etc. So in Tamil they say "eno danam," which means "eno danam," which means like just like that, do go. If we do like that, the boring tasks, it would impact the consciousness of the rest of our work. It's the small things that differentiates a person who can live life like a master or a person who can live life with joy from somebody who's good but is missing that fine, rich expertise. That's going to come with the simple, boring things. Now, in school or college, the students don't have choice. They have to study subjects. So at those times, those of us who have done well, even if we don't like a subject, we do it with a certain skill. Why? Uh, I mean, in one end of it, marks, for the marks. In another end of it, it is tasting success. So whether we like it or not, doing something with a certain expertise, doing something with a certain level of success is again quite important in this in our relationship with these boring tasks. Okay. Now, at any point, if anybody who's hearing it live, if you have a question or something, you can put it on chat or whatsoever way. Yeah. But now let's take a different dimension. Uh, I read a quote, okay, by a spiritual master, and the quote said like, "Do things disinterestedly, Do things disinterestedly. Now, this anybody in corporate or in L&D or training, they would object to this statement. What do you mean disinterestedly? Or if your manager is hearing this, they will say, "What do you mean do it disinterestedly? We're supposed to do our job with interest and joy and love and all that stuff." Yeah, true, very true. But there is a deeper aspect here, which do things disinterestedly simply means that whatever job is given to you, okay, whatever job is given to you, you go beyond interest, whether you like it or not. If the job is passing through you, take the job to the next level. You know, some of my training, like in my young days, I used to be a volunteer and I learned so much about things. Before workshops, we were asked to clean the restrooms. It has to be clean. And after the break, it has to be again clean. Uh, People used to go for breaks, and before they come, this used to be large workshops, 100, people. They will toss the chairs in and around. In those 10, 15 minutes, we had to organize things, and by the time they come back, the hall has to be again impeccable. Yeah, it has to have that touch. Okay, so disinterested simply means that go beyond your interest, whether you like it or not. If the job has been entrusted on you, or if it's part of your job description, then every dimension of it, let it shine. So if you take a job description, there'll be 10 activities, 10 roles. 4 we like, maybe 6 we partially like. There should be no difference. That's a higher game of playing. If I like it, obviously you'll do it well. If you don't like it, we'll have to do it with that much of expertise that the boss or the customer finds no difference. All the 10 dimensions of the job are mastered and learned. Mastered doesn't mean it's over. It's learned and learned again and learned again, because those are all the dimensions of the work, of the product. I can't, like somebody has 5 kids, you can't go back and say, I love the two and the other three I'm going to be partial. No, nobody would do that as a parent. You want to take care of all the 5. Similarly, go beyond your personal likes and dislikes. Go beyond what naturally comes. Also, there's also this whole thing of now going on what is naturally coming to you. While that is a good part of the story, even if it doesn't come natural, there is a whole joy of exploring and opening a dimension, so that aspect of work and that aspect of life can also be anything that passes through you. Any work, it has to have that shine. Disinterested means beyond Arul. Take the work to its highest. Take the work closer to its intended aspiration or vision. In that way, boring or interesting both gets to meet the same treatment from you. Now, it's a very interesting life. Morning to evening, I personally believe that we should work till our last breath. We should live life till our last breath. I learned that from my dad. Okay, even on that day when he passed, he did a very complex activity a couple of hours back before, and where people are all amazed how he did it, because just around that time there was a little discomfort. Even then he had executed, I'm keeping the details, but he executed something extraordinarily complex with a high degree of precision, and they're all amazed. Well, that's a fantastic way to live life, boring or not. If the work demands, if family demands, then let's take the tasks to its highest. Now, this doesn't take away the fact that we should do things which are closer to our vision. We should do things that we are born for. That's also true. This is also true. So, this is what is my sharing. Um, I see no questions yet, or no this thing on the chat, so that's fine. I'm just going to end this with a couple of minutes of practice, as has been the rhythm that I've been maintaining. So we can just close our eyes for a few we'll just do a minute or two of practice. Just close your eyes and think of some activity that you do from morning to evening, which is kind of boring, which you want to do well, joyfully and skillfully. It could be in the work or it could be in the family life. Now, think of you doing the activity, but I want you to be with your breath. So it's almost like you're there, the task is there, and you're breathing into the task. Let's say you're doing some accounts, or you're cutting some vegetables, or you're doing that boring report which you have to do. So the task is there, you're there. Just allow your breath to touch the task and you. Touch the task and you, like that. Do it for a minute. And then do just one more practice. What is the joy of the task? Question is not whether the task is joyful to you. What is the joy of the task? What is the pulse of the task? Connect to it. Whether you like it or not. Like, for example, if mathematics is boring, it's boring for you. But mathematics itself has a joy, it has a pulse, the domain of numbers, like that. So, like that, whatever is your task, whatever is its pulse and joy, just connect to it and be with it for a minute. And just one last thing, allow the joy and pulse of the task to touch you, to reach you. Like if the numbers is the pulse of the mathematics, let it touch you. Like that, whatever is the boring task, you sense the pulse of it, joy of it. Be with your breath and receive that pulse within you. Let it touch you. And that's it. This will bring the task alive. This will make any work interesting, and we can have a masterful and a happy relationship with the all aspects of our life and work. So thank you so much for joining. Do follow us at People First Consultants. We are trying to make some breakthroughs in the field of work, in the field of life, in the field of living. There are many of us who are involved in this right now. So do watch us and do contribute to us and do taste and take benefit from whatever we're offering. Thank you so much and bye bye. Take care.